¿A dónde está papi? 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 ¿A dónde está papi?
Welcome, welcome, welcome to the Wait, isn't Wednesday today already? What day is it today? Tuesday. It is indeed Tuesday. Welcome, everybody. Hope you're all having an awesome Tuesday. I have the notifications now. Nice. I see Liz Cheney is dumped. I believe she lost her primary to someone who is an election denier. As I've made the argument, this is basically the party of Trump. This is basically a party that is running, and in some cases winning their primaries on the fact that they don't believe in democratic norms. That's kind of the deal now. Rudy Giuliani is a deep doo-doo. I believe so. I think we talked. Was it yesterday? We went over an article that he is the actual subject of an investigation regarding elections in Georgia, as he allegedly and apparently, from what we understand, might be involved in a scheme to alter the results of the 2020 election. Is Liz Cheney completely kicked out, like gone? I think she lost her primary. I think that's what they're referring to. She lost her primary to an election denier. We'll take a look at this in a second. Here, just to piggyback off what you guys are saying, or asking. She is losing her seat. She's on the cusp of losing her seat to a primary opponent that's backed by President Trump. The guy's name is Harriet Hageman, who has echoed Trump's false claims of widespread voter fraud in a Republican primary election to decide Wyoming's lone member in the House of Representatives. Yeah, so that's where we're at, folks. Certainly, it's the beginning of a battle that's going to continue to go on, and as a country, we're facing a moment where our democracy... Yeah, you know what? I really have no interest in hearing what she has to say. I'm going to be honest. I really do not care what she has to say. She lost a primary to an election denier, and also her voting record speaks for itself. So, alright, folks, we got quite the amount of articles to go through. Let's see how much we can get done. Hey, Echo Resto Dragon, listening to as I ride the bus home. Nice. They're saying the Dems should switch their vote to Cheney for the best outcome. Nah. No, why would you vote for Liz Cheney? Like, you mean like in the primary? No, that's Republicans. That's the Republican primary. There's no point in voting for any. At this point, there's no real reason to vote for any conservative or any Republican. Period. There's no need for that. No need for that at all. All right, let's take a look here. Trump's little, I guess, tweet truther. There's no way to justify the unannounced raid, the deployment, the execution of a search warrant, the home of the 45th president of the U.S. and who got more votes by far than any sit-in president. No, okay, no. By a very large number of gun-toting FBI agents and the Department of Justice, but in the interest of transparency, I call for the immediate release of the completely unredacted affidavit pertaining to this horrible and shocking break-in. Also, the judge in this case should recuse themselves. I don't know what this has to do with anything. This is just gobbledygook. I have no idea what he's saying. Yeah, she's still a Republican that voted with Trump over 90% of the time. Yeah, she's just as bad. There's no need to elevate her in any way, shape, or form. She's just as bad. I'm not sure what he's trying to say here. I'm really not sure. But, Trump's losing it, so he's flipping out. Trump should be treated as a criminal. I mean, there is a investigation going on right now. So we'll see. We will see. Let's take a look at our wonderful congressperson, Marjorie Taylor Greene, on climate change. I'm sure she's about to illuminate us on all the data that exists on climate change. I'm sure she's about to lay it on us.
Gentlemen, and we're all here in Georgia. Can we just say thank God for air conditioning? Let's talk about refrigerators. I personally like my refrigerator.
Wow. Stunning commentary. Excellent. Thank you, Marjorie Taylor Greene.
I know you all like yours. What about washing machines and dryers? Lord, please God, don't make me scrub clothes in a bucket and have to hang them out on the line when we switch over to wind turbines and solar panels. I'm going to be really pissed off about that.
Because the switching over to renewable energy makes your appliances completely inoperable, folks. You heard it here first, live. You heard it here first, live. Apparently, to the known climate scientist Marjorie Taylor Greene has stated that switching to renewables apparently makes your appliances inoperable. Wow, excellent. Thank you. Thank you, Marjorie Taylor Greene, for educating us. Forgive me being an unwashed foreigner.
Later at night. I don't want to have to go to bed when the sun sets.
What?
It's so silly. I mean, all of this is absolutely insane. Ladies and gentlemen.
Oh yeah, that's insane. That's insane. The irony. Like, I think that's what's worse about this, and I keep repeating this. I think what's worse about this is the people that are clapping, right? The people that are agreeing, like clapping approvingly. That's the real problem here, right? Like, immediately she should be made fun of. Immediately. She should be laughed out of the room immediately for saying something so asinine. Like, oh yes, switching over to renewables like wind and solar are now gonna make your appliances inoperable, and B, you're gonna have to sleep early because you won't be able to turn the lights on. Chat, can somebody enlighten me? Excuse the pun. On the very, very radical technology that exists today, that could possibly solve these problems. This brand new radical technology. Can somebody illuminate me on this?
An article or peer-reviewed paper drops into my news feed about a breakthrough game changer that's apparently set to
Yes, batteries. That's right. Batteries. Batteries and the ability to store energy for long periods of time to keep the power running, despite there being no sun or no wind. Depending. Apparently, Marjorie Taylor Greene has not heard of batteries. Unfreaking believable. But that's the Republican Party. Herschel Walker had also a great take on climate change by educating us on how wind works, apparently. And these are grid scalable. Nice. I like this response. This is hilarious. If God wanted us to have unlimited energy, he'd put a giant fusion reactor in the sky. Damn. If only. It's just this radical anti-intellectualism. That's what it is, really. Cosmic seeking. It's just this radical anti-intellectualism. That's what it is. So that was a good meme. Alright, now on to a little bit more serious stuff. Let's turn our attention back to Florida. Florida court blocks teen from getting an abortion and must continue the pregnancy. Oh yeah, it's a 50-minute video. Tucker. I mean, Tucker Carlson is a proponent and has been well documented proponent of white supremacist narratives, is xenophobic rhetoric, the Great Replacement theory, things like that. Oh yeah, that's pretty well documented. I think that video does a good job to put it all together. A Florida appellate court on Monday blocked a 16-year-old teenager from getting an abortion, saying that she's not sufficiently mature to end her pregnancy. Oh man, this is great. The logic here, flawless. The logic here is freaking flawless, folks. You are not sufficiently mature to end the pregnancy, but also you are sufficiently mature enough to take on all the massive responsibilities that it entails to be a parent. Make it make sense, chat. Make it make sense. Insufficiently mature to end pregnancy, insufficiently mature to make that decision for her own body, but somehow mature to then be forced to follow through this, endure all that entails, and then on top of that, pile the responsibility for, I don't know, 18 freaking years at minimum, right? Like, I'm just, obviously I'm using that standard as 18 being the adult, right? Legal age of adult, and up to the age where you're technically and legally responsible for the child. So you're forcing not only whatever entails, whatever physical and mental challenges this entails, you're forcing her to go through this, and then you're piling on 18 years of responsibility, where she has the full responsibility of making sure that child is fed, that child gets an education, that child is good, is healthy, all that for 18 years. Make it make sense, folks. This is ridiculous. This is ridiculous beyond words. The logic here, it's just not there. The teenager who court documents say is parentless, so she's parentless, no support, no support whatsoever. Somehow cannot make decisions for herself, as she has no other parents. Maybe I believe it goes into the details later about a legal guardian, but has no parents, no support whatsoever. But yeah, let's just throw all this massive responsibilities of having a child, caring for the child for what the life of it. This is ridiculous. The teenager who court documents say is parentless had sought court approval to bypass a Florida law that requires a minor to get parental consent in order to get an abortion. The teen said that in her petition to bypass parental consent that she was not ready to have a baby because she's freaking 16. And the father is unable... Oh, hold on. Let me take a second back. The teen in her petition to bypass parental consent that she was not ready to have a baby because she's freaking 16. Does not have a job because, again, she's freaking 16. She's still in school because, again, she's 16. And her father is unable to assist her. So she's got no support, nothing. Nothing at all. Additionally, she argued that her legal guardian is fine with the decision to get an abortion. So the one instance of like, I guess, legal guardianship, which should have the legal authorization to say yes, has already said that they're fine with this. Does that mean that she was officially raped? I don't know. I don't know, because if it was two teenagers, like two 16-year-olds, I don't think that's considered rape. Unless it was not consensual. Unless, if you're talking about like statutory rape, like rape because an older person took advantage of her, no, I don't think so, nor do we know, to be quite honest. But I don't even know if that's like a factor here. Under law, under the law, a health provider cannot provide an abortion to minor unless they receive written consent from a parent or legal guardian. Exceptions exist if the health provider believes there's a medical emergency. A minor can petition a judicial waiver to go around the parental consent requirement. A court has to find them sufficiently mature to let them move forward with the abortion. Okay, but like, that doesn't make any freaking sense. She's telling you. Wait, wouldn't that actually make the argument that she is sufficiently mature to make this decision? Because she's telling you, hey, I cannot handle this right now, okay? I don't have a job. I've got no backup, no support. I'm in school. I can't go through with this. And having the means to have that option, wouldn't that make her more mature? Wouldn't that be the mature decision, understanding the severity of the situation, knowing that you can't handle this right now? She better get out of state. Well, you need money for that. That's the problem. You need money for that. A lower court, Florida court, had ruled that the teenager who's unidentified was not mature enough to decide to get an abortion. The teen then filed an appeal, and the appellate court upheld the previous decision. The trial court found, based on non-adversarial presentation below, that the appellant had not established by clear and convincing evidence that she was sufficiently mature to decide whether to terminate her pregnancy. Don't worry, we'll tell you what to do. We'll tell you what to do. At least 36 states require parental involvement in a minor's decision to have an abortion, according to the Guttmacher Institute, a research organization that supports abortion rights. Florida is one of the 6 states that required that a parent or guardian be notified of a teen's intent to get an abortion, as well as that they consent to the procedure. Abortion rights advocates say that parental consent abortion laws can put a teenager's health and safety at risk. True, the ACLU says that by requiring a teenager to get consent, they could exacerbate an already volatile or dysfunctional family. Yeah, a situation like, exactly. What if you're like in a very effed situation? What do you do? What do you do? You're trying to be like you're trying to make the right decision for yourself, right? Because at the end of the day, that's what it's for. That's what you're trying to do. Right, it's your body, and we will do what we want with it. We need to, by decree, tell you what to do and what you can and can't do. And just to make it, just add insult to injury, we actually don't know if you're mature enough. Like, how condescending is that? I've said this time and time again. The abortion debate, argument, or whatever you want to call it, fundamentally is about bodily autonomy. The Republican Party is an authoritarian party. They do not believe in bodily autonomy. They do not believe in rights like that whatsoever. Everyone has the right to self-determination. In other words, you get to choose what to do with your body so long as it does not affect others. An important addition to the concept of bodily autonomy is that you're also not entitled to anybody's body. Period. Like, full stop. No, there's no if, and, or buts about it. Even in death, folks, you must have explicit consent, usually When you have your ID, you sign a little thing or you check a mark or a box. But you have to make a conscious decision to give consent so that in the event you should pass away, like an accident, or you should pass away for whatever reason, they can harvest your organs. They can't do that without your explicit consent. The government's only business here, as insofar as this debate goes, is to protect that right. That's it. Full stop. If you have some weird moral, religious garbage objection to an abortion, then don't have one. You do not get to dictate to the rest of us what to do. That's it. You wait till a Republican's politician's son becomes the father to an underage girl. I'm sure it's happened. They don't care. They don't have no shame whatsoever. These Republicans will literally these Republicans will go to their gay son or gay son's wedding, while simultaneously voting no on rights that would protect their marriage. So, no shame here whatsoever. No principles. While most minors do consult with their parents before getting an abortion, many teens live in a dysfunctional family environment, and parental involvement laws cannot transform these families into stable homes nor facilitate productive communication. True. Many companies lack the time. Okay, what? What is this? Oh. Transformative deals like... Wait, what? I'm so confused. Why is this... Oh, these are going into different articles. Oh my god. Okay, hold on. Anyways, TLDR. Expect more of these stories. Expect more of these stories. Hey, James Zapper, it's also important to note that Republicans, broadly speaking, don't actually support a complete ban on abortion. Most voters in America hold views that contradict with their party, but tends to prioritize other issues that do align with it to motivate them to vote. Consistently, Republicans have supported legal only under certain about 3 times as much as illegal in all polls. Yeah, if you're talking about Republican voters, yes. Yeah. I mean, we saw what happened in Kansas. The TLDR is that the Republican Party is just no longer compatible with democracy. They do not care about bodily autonomy, and if they do not care about bodily autonomy, pretty much that's all bets are off, right? If you can't accept that we have a complete and utter right to what happens to our bodies, as long as it doesn't hurt anybody else. If you can't accept that fact, then how are you compatible within a democratic system? You're not. Pretty soon there'll be unnecessary deaths of females who can't stop their pregnancy. Yep, or will be forced to carry children to term, or be forced, like this teen, responsibilities that they are not ready for. Yeah, this policy doesn't actually even represent the Republican base. It's pretty much entirely represents a very small but very influential minority of religious fanatics. Yep. But see, the thing is, like, even then, like, normal, I guess, conservatives who don't agree will still vote for this. Like, they'll still vote R next to it at the end of the day, even if it's at that cost. Even if that, they'll they'll gladly vote R. Shame. Shame. A lot of people are gonna get hurt because of this. But then, yeah, people will still vote red because ultimately they care about more than something else other than abortion, the economy, taxation, public spending, family values. Yeah, they kind of jumble that in there too. Family values, abortion, all of that. Yeah, even though they don't care about any of those things. Not really. Not really. I pointed to you that God and Integrity video yesterday, which covers this. Starbucks. Wait, did you? I gotta check that out at some point. Oh no, this is a Tucker Carlson video. Yeah, I gotta go back and check that. Switching gears for a second, Starbucks asked for a nationwide pause in mail-in union votes, alleging misconduct. Starbucks is accusing the NLRB employees of secretly coordinating with union organizers in the Kansas City area, and it wants the agency to halt all mail-in votes nationwide until a full investigation has been conducted. Right. Wait, so you want to stop all nationwide mail-in votes to unionize? Because, yeah, I saw that. That was a little bit spicy. Yeah, okay, I know what you're talking about now. Starbucks thinks the existence of a union vote is misconduct. Yeah, the mere existence of the union vote is the misconduct. But even if we grant them the possibility of this being the case, why would we stop all nationwide mail-in votes to unionize for a single Kansas City area? It doesn't make sense. How's it going, Maple Leaf Dragon? But labor organizers immediately called the move an extension of a broader anti-union campaign. I mean, yeah, that's Starbucks and every major corporation's MO. Yeah. The allegation is at the center of a 16-page letter Starbucks attorneys sent on Monday to the NLRB chairman, Lauren McFerrin, and the agency's general counsel. In the letter, which Starbucks shared with NPR, the company accuses NLRB personnel and the union of exploiting weaknesses in the mail-in ballot system to unfairly influence a vote. Wait, how? How? Influence a vote. What weakness? You fill out your ballot and then you mail it. Just gonna work and looking to chill? Well, you came to the right place. What kind of vague posting is this? Exploiting weaknesses. What weaknesses in the mail-in ballot system to unfairly influence a vote? So you would A, need to demonstrate what weaknesses you're talking about, and B, how that unfairly influences a vote over unionizing. And C, then explain to me, or I guess the NLRB, and then explain why this is a national phenomenon. Jesus. The CEOs and board of directors can't keep all the revenue for their whims, yeah. Starbucks alleges that NLRB regional staff repeatedly crossed the line of neutrality, alleging that despite ordering a mail-in election, the agency arranged for some voters to cast their ballot in person without informing Starbucks representatives. Okay, so you would have to show evidence of that. And again, in this hypothetical, how does this mean that we need to stop the nationwide effort to unionize? The mail-in ballot is not triple encrypted and does not use a registered courier service for delivery. That's the weakness. Ah, yes. It also says the NLRB workers shared real-time information with organizers about whether certain ballots had been received, and the company said it believes similar actions took place in at least 2 other NLRB regions. The NLRB was established in 1935 to protect workers' rights and to organize and collectively bargain with their employer over working conditions and other issues. In April, in the April vote to unionize, 6 workers voted for and 1 against, according to the NPR member station KCUR, and another 7 votes were challenged. The NLRB and organizers respond to Starbucks' claims. When reached for comment, the NLRB spokesperson Kayla Blado noticed that the agency doesn't comment on open cases. Those challenges should be raised in filings specific to the particular matters in question. The regional staff, and ultimately the board will carefully and objectively consider any challenges raised through these established channels, which include opportunities to seek expedited review in both representation and unfair labor practice. The pro-union group, Starbucks Workers United, said that the new accusations are part of the Seattle Corporation's broader strategy to thwart organized labor. This is Starbucks yet again attempting to distract attention away from their unprecedented anti-union campaign, including firing over 75 union leaders across the country, while simultaneously trying to halt all union elections. Right. That's the point. They're winning too many elections. The group told NPR via email, workers have spoken loud and clear, winning by 82% of union elections. Nice. Starbucks says the accusations originate with the NLRB career professional who it says is aware of documents outlining with specificity a concerted effort to tip the scales in voting to favor the union in a Kansas City area Overland Park store election. Starbucks did not name that person. Interesting. A lot of vague posting, not a lot of evidence. When asked in a follow-up conversation whether the NLRB worker had used federal whistleblower protocols or contacted the agency's inspector general about their concerns, the company said only that the person's supervisor had opted not to pursue their claims. Convenient. Despite Starbucks' insistence that its workers, known as, quote, partners, don't need a union. Yeah. Okay. That's definitely how you know that you need a union. That is definitely definitely how you know that you need a union. Yeah, I don't have links here. If you're talking about that Tucker Carlson video, I can just post it. The Starbucks workers are getting too much power and influence. True. The effort has rapidly... Starbucks Workers United said more than 200 of the company's stores in the U.S. are now unionized. The effort has rapidly gained momentum in the past year, but union locations represent only a small fraction of the 15,650 U.S. stores. Starbucks listed in its most recent earnings report. Well, congratulations, and I hope that the unionization efforts continue. Starbucks doing what Starbucks does, what as any big company does, which is to disrupt any type of unionization efforts, to demonize union organizers and organization efforts, and engage in whatever tactics necessary to prevent unions, because they know at the end of the day, unions work, and unions benefit the workers. That's why they don't want it. Alright, folks, switching gears really quickly. How climate change spurs mega droughts. The curious connection between the sky's thirstiness and dry spell devastating the western U.S. Let's see how much we can go through this. Actually, I think this is a good place to start. The connection between climate change and drought is not as straightforward as it seems. But some areas are likely to get wetter while others get drier. Still, others may accumulate the same total of rainfall, but inconsistent patterns. More rain might fall in fewer, more intense bursts, followed by longer dry spells. It's complicated. But scientists can say one thing with certainty: as the world gets hotter, soils get drier. It takes more and more precipitation to water the same crops and fill the same reservoirs. Rising temperature, therefore, digging the American West and other arid regions into a deeper and deeper hole. The more the world warms, the more rain will be needed to compensate, and that will force people to rethink how and where they will live and eat when the water dries up. Right, it's getting harder to replace as well. One problem with linking drought and climate change is that there's little agreement on what drought actually is. No two people, including no two scientists, really agree on how to even define drought. It's Daniel Swain, a climate scientist at the University of California, Los Angeles. A drought in the most general sense is simply a lack of water relative to some long-term average, but where that dearth of water appears can change how the drought is defined, studied, and managed. Climate scientists and meteorologists talk about meteorological drought, a lack of rainfall. Farmers worry about agricultural drought, a lack of soil moisture, and water managers try to avoid a hydrological drought, a lack of groundwater or water in reservoirs. Yeah, but all of these things have separate definitions, right? In the center of the US will soon be like Australia. Yeah, like the Dust Bowl, but worse probably. This complexity has resulted in conflicting messages about the role of human-caused global warming and droughts that have ravaged the American West and the rest of the world. Thanks to the science of extreme event attribution, which connects weather extremes to global warming, it has become commonplace to cite climate change as a factor in devastating heat waves or torrential floods. But the droughts are trickier. Droughts depend on both the rain that falls and how quickly it is evaporated and used. On the rainfall side of things, well, we can look up the general definition. I think we're like talking like different types. In general, a prolonged period of abnormal low rainfall leading to a shortage of water. On the rainfall of things, climate change's influence in California, Nevada, Arizona, and other western states remain murky. In recent years, rain and snowfall in California have become more variable. The drier years are drier and the wet years are wetter. In 2017, Lake Oroville served as a sobering illustration of this whiplash when in the span of less than 4 months, the reservoir of North Sacramento went from less than half full to nearly overflowing, causing main spillways to collapse. Some 188,000 local residents were evacuated. Swade and his colleagues estimate a 25 to 100% increase in such extreme dry to wet precipitation events in California over the next century. Alio with the 10 biddies, thank you so much, I appreciate that. Even with this volatility, the total precipitation in the West is expected to stay roughly the same. Swains and scientists expect the Pacific Northwest to get somewhat wetter, Arizona and New Mexico somewhat drier. Therefore, it's not a lack of rainfall, it's rising temperatures. The atmosphere is like a sponge, it sucks up water from the soils, plants, rivers, oceans, and lakes. Anytime rain falls, some of it will evaporate, returning back into the sky before it can be piped into homes, fields, and aqueducts. Scientists have a measure for how thirsty the atmosphere is or how much water the sky absorbs, evaporative demand. As temperatures go up, evaporative demand increases and the sky gets, quote, thirstier. A very basic rule is that if you're going to have a warmer atmosphere, then you need more precipitation to compensate, said Park Williams, a hydroclimatologist at the University of California, Los Angeles. If you turn the heater up in your house and you don't give your plants extra water, you see the same thing. Christine Albano, an eco-hydrologist at the Desert Research Institute in Reno, Nevada, studies evaporative demand and how it might change under global warming. Maple Leaf Dragon with 100 biddies. Jesus. Thank you so much. That's very generous. I appreciate that. Thank you. A warmer atmosphere can hold more water, she explained, and she added that the changes are non-linear. Small change in temperature could lead to a much larger change in how thirsty the sky is. In a paper published earlier this year, Albano and her co-authors found that evaporative demand has increased over the past 40 years, most dramatically in the U.S. Southwest around the Rio Grande River. In that region, evaporative demand increased by 8 to 15%, meaning that the area would require 8 to 15% more rainfall to maintain the same water levels. As temperature warms, the situation will get even worse. For every raindrop, we're going to get less of that going into our streams and rivers, right? It'll be stuck there. That's wild. That thirsty atmosphere has been behind what most of the studies that have found a clear link between global warming and persistent droughts. The last catastrophic drought in California, which stretched from 2011 to 2017, drained reservoirs and forced farmers to pump groundwater from the state's disappearing underground aquifers. Some scientists look for a direct link between climate change and the lack of rainfall, but did not find convincing evidence. Those who looked at the effect of temperature on soil, moisture, and general aridity, however, found that something more interesting. That human-caused climate change had turned what would have been a more moderate drought into a devastating one. Yeah. In a paper published in 2015, Williams Cook and others found that skyrocketing temperatures brought on by human-caused global warming had made the drought 15 to 20% more intense. Yikes. And there are more people trying to live in those areas too. Yep. Similar results have been found all over the globe. A few years ago, scientists analyzed the European droughts of 2016 and 2017, which helped spark deadly wildfires in Portugal, and found that it had been made worse by high evaporative demand. To the south, the Horn of Africa has been ravaged by a series of droughts over the last decade, causing successive crop failures and threatening millions with severe hunger and starvation. Jesus. In 2015, scientists searched for ties to climate change in 2015, scientists searching for ties to climate change found no connection to the region's low rainfall. They did, however, find a link between rising greenhouse gas emissions and high temperatures that have helped to desiccate the landscape of Kenya, Somalia, and Ethiopia. So climate change. Okay. Now Spain is slowly being consumed by fire too. Yep. Did you all see the pictures of the river in France? That's what parts of the river Lori looks like. That was the river. That was a bridge. Yeah, the Rhine River was getting too low for ships. Yeah, how about this one? Try that on for size. There are areas of this river where you can literally just walk. You can literally just walk. It's completely bone dry. Temperature has also been implicated in the study of the decades-long mega drought in the American West, a loosely defined term that has been used to indicate droughts that last 2 decades or more. Yeah, I mean, like, I think at this point, like, I've heard this terminology more and more. It's basically desertification, yeah? Yeah, I guess, they need hovercrafts, yep. Scientists have spent decades drilling holes into trees to collect tree ring records, a science known as dendrochronology, which can be used to estimate soil moisture levels going back for millennia. Some records have even been collected from ancient wooden ladders in the cliff dwellings of the Chaco Canyon. According to those records, 19 of the last 23 years were drier than average over the past millennium. Williams, the UCLA scientist, says that this megadrought is being made worse by climate change. 40% of the severity of the drought conditions in this megadrought is attributable to human-caused climate trends, largely from rising temperatures. 60% of this megadrought, William cautioned, could simply be seen as bad luck. Even without humans burning fossil fuels, megadroughts have endured for decades in the past, starving the landscape and local species of water, but what has previously been just bad luck is now getting a boost from climate change. It's only going to get warmer. It's only going to take more and more good luck to bail us out. Yeah, like, I don't know if I would put it in this wording, but essentially, there can be scenarios where we get, decades of desertification or drought or whatnot, but it's increasing the odds as we continue to go business as usual. It's raising the odds of A, this happening, and B, this being worse. It's basically creating the environment where these scenarios occur more likely. Things that are only supposed to happen, every 100 years or every thousands of years or whatever, X amount, are happening more frequently and sooner and more intense than we originally thought. That's basically it. Climate change is also undermining one of America's West's most treasured tools for managing drought: snowpack. In the Sierra Nevadas of California and in the Colorado Rockies, snow falls during the winter and then acts as a natural reservoir, slowly releasing water as it thaws out during the hot, dry summer season. But as temperature rises, more precipitation is falling as rain instead of snow, and any remaining snow is melting more quickly and earlier in the season. By 2050, scientists estimate that the mountains of the western U.S. will lose about 25% of their snowpack. In 60 years, there may be no snowpack at all. Jeez. Yikes. And as the planet heats up, mega droughts such as the ongoing one raging in California, Arizona, and New Mexico are expected to return again and again. Yeah. I mean, that would be like the new normal, right? So things that normally don't happen that often, things that happen once in a X amount of time, are now just normal occurrences and more intense. According to one study by Cook, the NASA scientists, and others, the risk of a 35-year-old long drought hitting the American Southwest was less than 12% between the 1950s and 2000. But if countries fail to take aggressive action to combat climate change and the world continues to warm, the risk of such a drought will climb to more than 80%. In other words, the certainty is pretty there. 12% to 80% is a huge jump. We need to start developing geoengineering projects and change the majority of our agriculture to regenerative agriculture if we're going to make a dent in the trends, among other things. But yes, yeah. The American West has built on a strange hodgepodge system of water that for the last century has somehow sustained millions of residents in the most arid parts of the country. Reservoirs, dams, and aqueducts carry water from where it is plentiful, the peaks of the Sierra Nevadas, and the banks of the Colorado River, and deliver it to where it is scarce, fast-growing metropolises like Phoenix, Salt Lake City, and Los Angeles. In California, 75% of the state's rain and snowfall north of Sacramento, but 80% of its water demands come from the southern two-thirds of the state. This imbalance is corrected artificially. A long cement aqueduct carries water from the north of the state to the south, shuttling through the dry, crackling Central Valley. More comes from the Colorado River, which brings water from the east to Los Angeles and Southern California. Sheesh. The system has faced numerous droughts before. In dry times, policymakers call for cutbacks and march down the list of water right holders and inform each how their supplies will be curtailed. The last big drought in California, which reached its peak in 2014 and 2015, saw residents drought shaming one another for maintaining lush lawns. Los Angeles Mayor Eric Garcetti called such shaming a civic duty. And an enormous backlash against almond growers after news broke that it takes a gallon of water to produce a single almond. Jesus. But the sheer longevity of the current dry period has even the most experienced water managers worried. That complex system of dams, aqueducts, and reservoirs that funnels waters from western states for lawns and golf courses, which are completely unnecessary, and farms, is cracking under the strain. We built these amazing places on the basis of promise of water, said John Fleck, a professor of water policy and governance at the University of New Mexico. And they're good things. I don't want to demonize what we did. I do. I'm comfortable doing that. I'm completely comfortable with demonizing things like golf courses. Yes. Yeah, the golf course is an abomination. So many resources poured into a pastime. Yeah, exactly. Into a pastime that's not only like ecologically damaging, but wastes so much water for nothing. For some rich fucks to get like to go out like one day or something. I don't know. Just doesn't make sense. To be sure, the current drought and even the overlapping decades-long mega drought will eventually end. I don't expect it to be as dry as it has been in the past few years forever. But the slow-moving disaster has demonstrated just how shaky the West Foundation is, and it is a warning that the water system of the present may not hold for the future. Yeah, and like, okay, what if? Yeah, sure. Let's say it ends. The drought or whatever ends. Okay. If you know that these things are expected to be the new norm and continue, and you will have back-to-back droughts, back-to-back mega droughts, maybe each drought may be more severe as time goes on. Yeah, it's kind of a problem. It's kind of a problem. Oh, it makes sense. It's just massively immoral. Yeah, I mean, I don't know. It just doesn't make sense to me. Like, there are ways to play golf. I don't know. Play VR golf, okay? Jesus. What will happen next? Nearly 40 million people live in California alone. Another 12 million reside in New Mexico, Arizona, and Nevada. And in the wake of the pandemic, southwestern states are growing fast as people look for more affordable housing, strong job markets, and warmer weather. Oh man. But the warmer weather has a darker side. Not far from Phoenix, Arizona, one of the fastest growing cities in the U.S., one community is already running out of water. As the Colorado River and the snow caps of the Sierra Nevadas continue to dry up, the water flowing to the west, sprawling suburbs, and millions of acres of farmland will slow to a crawl. When that happens, communities will need to adapt. Agriculture water use will have to decline, even if that means destroying livelihoods that have continued uninterrupted for decades. Lawns will dry up, lush golf courses. Oh no! It's a horror! Lush golf courses will disappear. The very character of the West and of many arid parts of the globe will be transformed. In some ways, it's really simple. Flex said of climate change drought, the West will be less green. Yeah. Lawn shouldn't exist either. Yeah, I agree. Alright, I'm gonna take a quick break. I guess we'll go into the meme article after I take a second to grab a soda. Just give me 1 second, folks. While I grab a soda, I'll do a quick shill. A 5-second shill. Folks, consider checking out the sponsor for this month, HelloFresh, ! HelloFresh. Check it out. You get 16 free meals, 3 surprise gifts, across 6 boxes and free shipping on your first box. Use code POGHF475. Look at that. Consider checking that out, and you get to support the channel in a 2-for-1. It's a twofer. BRB. All right. Sorry about that. Let's do some memes, yeah? JP Morgan CEO Jamie Dimon, why can't we get it through our thick skulls? America boosting oil and gas production is not against climate change. I mean, how is it possible that the production of fossil fuels that emit massive amounts of greenhouse gases, which are known to directly contribute to climate change, how could that not be against climate change? Yes, let's pump more of this. More of the same problem is good. The HelloFresh job board in Canada has like 100 openings of jobs I would never thought were needed. Interesting. I couldn't tell you, Maple Leaf Dragon. I just know that we use the service and it works. I'll do the proper shill at half point. JP Morgan CEO Jamie Dimon said this week that the U.S. natural gas production does not conflict with long-term emission reduction targets. We should focus on climate. The problem with that is that because of high oil and gas prices, the world is turning back on their coal plants. It's dirtier. Yes, it is. So we shouldn't turn to coal. We should turn to renewables. What? What is this logic? All the postings were in Toronto, Calgary, and Vancouver. Gotcha. Why can't we get it through our thick skulls that if you want to solve climate change, it is not against climate change for America to boost more oil and gas? America, historically the most contributor to this, should continue. What? Should actually boost production of oil and gas. But as we pull down the curtain and we reveal, JP Morgan Chase was ranked as the world's top fossil fuel financier. Nice. Now it all makes sense. Now it all makes sense. In a report published by environmental groups last year, who said the bank contributed a total of $317 billion to the industry between 2016 and 2020. Can you imagine if all that went to renewables? Can you imagine if all of that energy, if all of those resources went to renewables? Right, but then that begs the question, why? Of course we're going to use them, right? That's, yeah. The bank, well, even production of these things does have a ecological effect, right? The bank has pledged to achieve net zero emissions through throughout key sectors of its financing portfolio by 2050, in accordance with the Paris Agreement. A spokesperson for JP Morgan did not immediately respond to insiders' request for comment. I don't believe them. Natural gas produces half the CO2 compared to burning coal and has played an important role in reducing the U.S.'s overall CO2 emissions since 2007. However, climate scientists have told Reuters that the oil and gas industry is growing at a rate incompatible with the goals of limiting warming to 1.5 degrees. Yeah, we're not, yeah, we've moonshotted that. We've decided to moonshot that one out of reach. I see more and more rhetoric closer to saying that we're going to try to stop it at 2, but even then, that's not good. Not good at all. Not good at all. The stuff that we're reading about, like these unprecedented climate events that keep happening, and yet continue to be labeled as unprecedented. This is now, right? Like we're experiencing these adverse like weather patterns, abnormal weather patterns, catastrophic weather events. These things are happening now. In his 2021 letter to shareholders, Diamond says that national security demands energy security for ourselves and our allies overseas, noting that using gas to diminish coal consumption is an actionable way to reduce CO2 expeditiously, or using renewables in as many areas possible with as much investment as possible would probably be better. Tesla's getting ready to roll out megapacks using LFP batteries, which don't need nickel to produce. That's huge. Yeah, our battery technology continues to expand itself. He added that the U.S. needs immediate approval for additional oil leases and gas pipelines, as well as permits for green energy projects. Or why not throw as much as possible to renewable energy? Like, why do we need to continue this? Every plant that goes online, whether it be natural gas or whether it be coal or whatever, it's already locking in decades of emissions. This March, Diamond urged the Biden administration to develop a modern-day Marshall Plan to boost energy production within the U.S. to decrease dependence on foreign oil. Yeah, but like to boost energy production. Okay, that doesn't... Energy is not equal to fossil fuels. He also pushed the push for green investments in green tech like hydrogen power and carbon capture. Not sold. While we will need carbon capture, I don't think that. I think that our majority of resources, given the time constraints that we have, should be going to switching ourselves off of fossil fuels in every single way possible, as quickly as possible. Anyways, good memes. Nice. CEO of I think the bank that invests in most that finances the most amount of fossil fuel is saying that fossil fuel is actually good, and fossil fuels are not really against climate change. Aquatic energy storage is better than gravity storage. Well, here's an interesting video. We're gonna have to double time this because we don't have.
World's media outlets, depending on where you live, you're presumably either suffering from heat stroke from the hottest temperature your country has ever experienced, or you're wondering how you're going to rebuild your house now that the wildfires have flattened your entire town, or perhaps you're seriously considering going the full Kevin Costner and buying a houseboat to cope with the floods that seem to be arriving with ever-increasing regularity. And don't get me started on the food crisis and the crippling cost of fuel. It can all sound a bit apocalyptic sometimes, can't it? And apocalypses do tend to make us feel a little anxious about what the future holds and whether there's anything we can do about it. And that's not helped by the tidal wave of conflicting information in the press and on social media. The temptation is to do absolutely nothing at all, a bit like the proverbial rabbit in the headlights. And of course, just like the rabbit in the headlights, doing nothing at all is probably not your best option.
True.
Transport is a great example, isn't it? Should you get an electric vehicle, or is it all just a big scam like some bloggers would have you believe? How about aviation? Are you really making climate change worse by flying off to your holiday destination once a year? And how about all the stuff we buy?
It depends. I mean, like, it depends, right? The guy that takes one, plane ride, once a year is not the same as the bunch of rich people that literally take private jets everywhere, multiple times.
That comes from abroad. How can we really find out what impact that's all having on the environment? It's all a bit of a minefield really, isn't it? Thankfully though, some really thorough research has been carried out in recent months by a couple of well-respected organisations analysing the full life cycle carbon footprints of the main types of powered vehicles we use in modern day society. So I thought it might be a good idea to dive in and have a look what they found out. Hello and welcome to Just Have a Think. Global transport emissions account for around 12 billion metric tonnes of CO2 equivalent going into the atmosphere each year. That's about 25% of all human-induced greenhouse gases. Without a step-changing policy, those emissions are set to nearly double by 2050. If we really want to limit global warming to only 1.5 degrees Celsius above 1850 temperatures, then we'd need to reduce those emissions by about 80% from today's levels, taking them down to only about 2.6 billion tonnes by mid-century. But you can only know for sure if that strategy would be successful if you've got some way of properly measuring the full life cycle impact of each type of vehicle. That's precisely the sort of data that this 2021 report seeks to clarify. It was produced by the International Council on Clean Transport, or ICCT. They're the folks who, back in 2014, accurately assessed the genuine emissions from VW diesel cars and alerted the US EPA that there might be some skullduggery going on, a finding which led to the notorious Dieselgate scandal, costing Volkswagen upwards of $20 billion to rectify. This latest study considers the whole range of environmental factors, from the lifetime average carbon intensity of fuels and electricity mixes, including biofuels and biogas, through to the carbon intensity during the useful lifetime of the vehicles. And it takes average real-world usage to derive its data instead of relying on official test values. And very importantly, it includes the near-term global warming potential of methane leakage emissions from natural gas and natural gas-derived hydrogen fuels.
Yeah.
All of that gets combined with greenhouse gas emissions from vehicle production, maintenance and recycling to give a single value for each vehicle type measured in grams of carbon dioxide equivalent for every kilometre the vehicle travels. What the analysis doesn't factor in is any emissions from building factories, distribution centres or recycling plants, or the fuel for transporting vehicles and installing filling stations and vehicle chargers. And it doesn't account for road building either. And that's because all those variables are pretty similar whichever type of vehicle you use. So they don't really have a significant influence on total life cycle comparisons. The ICCT carried out all that analysis for each of the 4 major passenger vehicle regions, the USA, Europe, India and China, and they arrived at 3 fundamental conclusions. Number 1, only battery electric and hydrogen fuel cell electric vehicles have the potential to achieve the reductions in life cycle emissions needed to meet the Paris Agreement goals. In fact, life cycle emissions for battery electric vehicles registered today in all 4 regions are already lower than comparable internal combustion engine cars. In Europe, they're 66 to 69% lower, and in the States, the difference is 60 to 80%. China's grid is still dominated by coal, so the difference is not so stark there, but even with the dirty black stuff accounting for most of the electricity generation, overall lifetime emissions are still 37 to 45% lower for electric vehicles. India is also very coal dominant, and they don't tend to have the most efficient vehicles either, but nevertheless, electric vehicles there still produce between 19 and 34% fewer emissions than gas guzzlers. And of course, as electricity grids continue to decarbonise rapidly through the rest of this decade, the gulf between EVs and combustion engines will only get wider and wider. For medium-sized cars registered in 2030, life cycle emissions for European electric vehicles are 70 to 77% lower than fossil fuel cars. American EVs are 62 to 77% lower, China improves to between 48 and 64%, and even Indian electric vehicles achieve emissions that are 34 to 56% lower than internal combustion engines.
Yeah, that's effectively would be the ultimate like setup, right? Is a closed loop system. That's right.
Conclusion number 2 from the ICCT is that there is no realistic pathway for deep decarbonisation of combustion engines. The so-called self-charging hybrid vehicles only get to an average global reduction of about 20% over internal combustion engine vehicles at best. And even the more common plug-in hybrids vary from about a 40% reduction in the States to around 25% in Europe and only about 6 to 12% in China. Vehicles using blends of biofuel and biogas in fossil diesel, gasoline and natural gas by 2030 will only result in a maximum lifetime emissions reduction of 9% over fossil fuel cars. The study found that it's just not feasible to supply enough low-carbon biofuels from residues in waste-based biodiesel, ethanol or biomethane to substantially displace fossil fuels in combustion engine cars. Plus, the very high production cost of these e-fuels means they're not likely to contribute substantially to decarbonisation of the fuel mix within the lifetimes of 2021 or 2030 cars. The third and final conclusion from the ICCT is that to align with the Paris Agreement targets, the registration of new combustion engine vehicles needs to be phased out in the 2030 to 2035 timeframe. Only battery electric vehicles powered by renewables and fuel cell vehicles powered by genuinely green hydrogen will get us to the reductions required according to the ICCT's assessment. Now, there are of course still plenty of naysayers who dispute the idea that EVs are really much better for the climate than conventional internal combustion engines. Those folks still focus on the energy intensive nature of lithium-ion battery production and point to the predominantly fossil fuel powered grids that provide electricity for battery charging. The ICCT analysis shows that even with those variables factored in, both of which are rapidly improving by the way, but even with them factored in, battery electric vehicles still massively outperform gas guzzlers across their lifetime. What those naysayers also conveniently forget to mention is the carbon emissions related to producing and transporting fuel for those gas guzzlers. For petrol and diesel, those upstream emissions add about 20% to the emissions of fuel combustion itself. Electric vehicle motors are about 80% efficient, partly due to the fact that as the vehicle brakes or goes down a hill, energy can be sent back into the battery to charge it back up a bit as you're driving. Combustion engine cars don't have that option, and the engines themselves, even after more than 100 years of fettling by the automotive industry, are still only about 30% efficient at best. A typical mid-range EV like a VW ID3 or a Chevy Bolt uses about 20 kilowatt hours for every 100 kilometers or 60 miles travelled. That's equivalent to 104 miles per US gallon. That means an electric vehicle quickly pays back the higher manufacturing phase emissions. An average European EV would pay back after 12,000 miles, and in the USA it would take about 12,500 miles. That's about a year and a half of driving for the average motorist. Those still determined not to be convinced may point to China's coal-dependent electricity grid and ask the classic schoolyard question, why should we be good boys and girls if those kids over there are being naughty? Now, of course, any rational adult will tell you that 2 wrongs don't make a right, and that setting a good example is the best way to change the behaviour of others.
Oh man, I love when like clowns decide to come into the chat and be like, well, what about China? What about Russia? What about India? What about whatever country you want to talk about? Well, what about us? What are we doing? That is correct. What a childish way of thinking.
If that doesn't do it for you, then how about this report from the World Resources Institute, which finds that if China enacts its 3 major national decarbonisation policies, which knowing China is highly likely, then petroleum consumption in that country would peak by 2027, and with a big push, that peak could come as early as 2024. Over the longer term, those policies can reduce China's road transport emissions by as much as 95% by 2060, in line with China's net zero commitment. Now, this video would get pretty long if I went through the whole report, so I won't do that, but I will leave a link in the description section below so you can take a look for yourself. But of course, we don't all travel exclusively by car, do we? What about emissions from other forms of transport? Well, that's where the
China
folks on a website called Visual can help us out.
As a famous atmospheric scientist, Herschel Walker explained to us very, very acutely that when China's bad air, when our good air goes to China, something about China's bad air has to go somewhere. So what we're doing effectively, according to very well-known atmospheric scientist Herschel Walker, is that we're cleaning China's air. Yeah. As soon as China scales up battery production, they won't need coal plants. Yeah. Have you seen China's high-speed rail? No,
Back in
but I know
February
that they've been taking a lot of steps forward.
2022, they gave us this little offering, based on data from the UK Department of Business, Energy and Industrial Strategy via the Our World in Data website. It shows the carbon footprint of all the main transport types, again measured in grams of carbon dioxide equivalent per person per kilometre travelled. The worst offenders are short-haul flights and driving alone with no passengers. Of course, not owning any kind of car at all and walking or riding a bicycle or taking public transport instead are the very lowest carbon ways of getting from A to B. Not everyone can use those options, of course, but millions of us can, and yet most of us don't. So if you're looking for the answer to the question I posed at the start of the video, which is what can I do to make a difference, maybe think about ditching the car altogether and getting yourself a nice shiny new two-wheeler. You'll certainly be fitter and healthier as a result. Now, no doubt you've got your own views on this thorny issue, so as always, the place to leave your thoughts is in the comment section below. That's it for this week though. A massive thank you, as always, to our fantastic Patreon supporters who keep these videos completely independent and ad-free. If you feel like you could support the channel for about the price of a coffee each month via Patreon, then you'll be able to get access to exclusive content from me and suggest future videos in monthly content polls. You can find out how to do all that by visiting patreon.com/justhavathink. And of course, the easiest way you can support the channel via YouTube is by clicking that subscribe button and hitting the notification bell. Completely free and dead easy to do all that. You just need to click on the little icon.
Paste. Alright, this was a good video. I don't want to be patriotic, but this guy is a Brit. Yeah, I can tell. No, this was a good video. I wish America had more reliable public transportation. Same. Same. Alright, let's switch gears for a second. Pennsylvania man arrested and accused of threats against FBI after Mar-a-Lago surge. Another domestic terrorist. Another right-wing domestic terrorist. A Pennsylvania man was arrested and charged with making threats against the FBI on right-wing social media site Gab after special agents searched former President Trump's Mar-a-Lago estate last week. Adam Baez was charged with influencing, impeding, or retaliating against a federal law enforcement official after the social media exploitation team in FBI's National Threat Operations section referred a tip about a Gab post by the user, quote, by username, quote, blank focus. The user, according to an FBI affidavit, posted that employees of the Bureau deserve to die. Sorry about that. Let me, An introduction of autonomous vehicles will be a game changer. True. I had an appointment at 1 p.m. West Coast, had to leave my house at 11:40 for the bus. Was late, but not too late. But it's 90 degrees outside. I got home from my appointment around 3. Good news, though. I stopped at a Dutch Bro Coffee, and they gave me my coffee for free. True. Hey, that's pretty cool. I want free coffee. Ah, yes, Gab, the renowned bastion of conservative intellectualism. True. That's actually what it is. Adam Byes was charged with influencing, impeding, or retaliating against a federal The threat operation section referred to a tip by a Gab poster by the user Blank Focus. The user, according to an FBI affidavit, posted that employees of the Bureau deserve to die. I'm ready for the inevitable. Once you accept reality for what it is instead of what you want or to want it to be, I guess is what he's trying to say, you can move on with your life and get prepared for the inevitable outcome. I already know I'm going to die at the hands of these pieces of shit, child molesting law enforcement scumbags. What? The delusions of a madman. Byes wrote, according to authorities, my only goal is to kill more of them before I drop. I will not spend 1 second of my life in their custody. Except he's now in their custody. Records show that Byes was taken into custody. Federal prosecutors are requesting that he be held until trial. The FBI received a tip about Byes from the MERMRI domestic terrorism threat. He was arrested, domestic terrorism threat monitor. He was arrested late Friday, and according to a Justice Department news release, the FBI and Department of Homeland Security warned about an increased number of threats against law enforcement after the search of Trump's estate in Palm Beach, Florida last week. A man was killed after he attacked an FBI office. Field office in Cincinnati last week. Asked if President Joe Biden has been briefed about the threats to FBI agents following the search at Mar-a-Lago, a White House official told NBC News that the president is being kept apprised of new threats to law enforcement. On Capitol Hill, some lawmakers are speaking out against the recent threats and attacks. House Homeland Security Committee Chairman Benny Thompson, said in a statement on Monday that he strongly condemned the recent violence and continued threats and rhetoric against law enforcement, including the judicial branch, FBI, and Justice Department leaders. These threats of violence and even civil war are coming predominantly from the right-wing extremists online. True. Are not only un-American, but are a threat to our democracy and rule of law. Unfortunately, these threats are frighteningly similar to those we saw in the run-up of January 6th insurrection on the Capitol, said Thompson, who also chairs the House committee investigating the January 6th insurrection. I urge law enforcement entities, including U.S. Capitol Police, to prepare for extremist threats facing our country. Yep. And so it is. More terrorist threats coming from the right. Yeah, but public transport does suck, especially in the US. Depending on where you live, it could be a little bit better. But for the most part, public transportation here is not great, not good. So as of earlier today, it looks like the Inflation Reduction Act was officially signed. We will see just how far or just how effective that piece of legislation is going to end up being. We'll see. We've got news as of about maybe an hour and something ago. This was signed. So we'll see what the ramifications are for this legislation. We'll see. Prosecutors struggled to catch up to a tidal wave of pandemic fraud. Investigators said there was so much fraud in the federal COVID relief program that even after 2 years of work and hundreds of prosecutions, they're still just getting started. In the midst of pandemic, the government got a jet meeting up with my gaming crowd. Nice! That's pretty cool. In the midst of the pandemic, government gave unemployment benefits to incarcerated, the imaginary, and the dead. It sent money to farms that turned out to be front yards. It paid people who were on the government's do not pay list. It gave loans to 342 people who said that their name was not available. What? Not applicable. As the virus shuttered business and forced people to work, the federal government sent a flood of relief money into programs aimed at helping the newly unemployed and boosting the economy. That included $3.1 trillion that former President Trump approved in 2020, followed by a $1.9 trillion package that was signed into law in 2021 by President Biden. But those dollars came with few strings and minimal oversight. The result, one of the largest frauds in American history, with billions of dollars stolen by thousands of people, including at least one amateur who boasted his criminal activity on YouTube. Now prosecutors are trying to catch up. There are currently 500 people working on pandemic fraud cases across the offices of 21 inspector generals, plus investigators from the FBI, the Secret Service, the Postal Inspection Service, and the IRS. The federal government has already charged 1,500 people with defrauding pandemic aid programs, and more than 450 people have been convicted so far. But those figures are dwarfed by the mountain of tips and leads that investigators will still have to chase. Jesus. Agents in the Labor Department, Inspector General Office have 39,000 investigations going. About 50 agents in Small Business Administration Office are sorting through 2 million potentially fraudulent loan applications. Officials already concede that sheer number of cases means that some smaller dollar thefts may never be prosecuted. Earlier this month, President Biden signed bills extending the statute of limitations for some pandemic-related fraud to 10 years from 5, a move aimed at giving the government more time to pursue cases. My message to those chiefs out there is this: you can't hide, we're going to find you. Jesus. We're going to find you, Jack. Said Mr. Biden during the signing of the White House. Investigators say they hope that the extra time will allow them to ensure that those who defrauded the government are ultimately punished, restoring a deterrent that vanished in a flood of lies and money. There are years and years of work ahead of us, said Kevin Chambers, the Department of Justice chief pandemic prosecutor. I'm confident that we'll use every single last day of those 10 years. Jesus. The federal government provided about $5 trillion in relief money in 3 separate legislative packages, an enormous sum that is credited with reducing poverty and saving the country from a prolonged, painful recession. But the investigators say that Congress, is in its haste to get money out the door, quickly designed all 3 packages with the same flaw, relying on the honor system. Wow. I mean, you should have just made, if you're just gonna do that, like, just make broad, just make better thought out programs that don't have that don't have means testing, right? Like, now you've got to do all of this when you could have just made different blanket approaches that don't end up yourself in this situation. For example, an expanded unemployment benefit gave workers an extra $600 per week in federal jobless funds on top of what they received from their state. The program was funded by the federal government but administered by states, which often had to loose rules around qualifying. Applicants did not need to provide proof they had lost income because of COVID. They simply had to swear it was true. A similar "we'll take your word for it" approach was used in 2 loan programs run by the Small Business Administration. They were paid the PPP loans, in which the government guaranteed loans made by private lenders, and Economic Injury Disaster Program, in which the government itself gave out loans and smaller advance grants that didn't have to be repaid. In both, the government trusted businesses to self-certify that they met key requirements. Both the Labor Department and Small Business Administration said they tried to screen those claims, and they did reject billions of dollars worth of applications that didn't make sense, but that wasn't enough. In some cases, the programs missed schemes that were comically easy to spot. For one instance, 29 states paid unemployment benefits to the same person. What? In another, the Postal Service employee got $82,900 loan for a business called the U.S. Postal Services. What? Oh, man. Another individual got 10 loans for 10 non-existing bathroom renovation businesses using the email address of a burrito shop. In the Paycheck Protection Plan, private banks were supposed to help with the screening since in theory they were dealing with the customers they already knew. But that left out many small businesses, and the government allowed online lenders to enter the program. This year, the University of Texas researchers found that some of those fintech lenders appeared less diligent about catching fraud. In another case, a mother and daughter of Westchester County, New York, stand accused of turning fraud into a franchise, helping other people cook up fake businesses in order to get loans from the Economic Injury Disaster Program. Andrea Ayers advised one client to tell the government that she ran a baking business from home, although she was not a baker. Like, you bake, Miss Ayers texted to the client, adding 4 laughing, crying emojis. According to the charging documents. LOL. Lol, the client wrote back. Oh, man. The scheme was designed prosecutors to take advantage of the Small Business Administration's advanced grant program, which provided applicants up to $10,000 upfront, while the agency decided whether to award a larger loan. Even if the loan was rejected, in many cases, the applicant could still keep that grant. Prosecutors said that Miss Mayer's daughter, Alicia Ayers, texted another client that the small size of the grant meant that they were unlikely going to be punished. $10K is not enough for jail time. The government charged both Ayers with wire fraud. They pleaded not guilty, and their lawyers did not respond to requests for comment. In some corners of the internet, schemes to defraud were discussed in chat rooms and YouTube videos where scammers offered to help for a cut of the proceeds. Some used the money on necessities like mortgage bills or car payments. Many seemed to act out on opportunism and greed, splurging on a yacht, a mansion, 38,000 Rolex, and a $57,000 Pokemon card. Nice. A first edition holographic Charizard, rated at 9.5. I don't know. This seems like a understandable reason as to why you want to defraud the government. Vinath Aldesheim bought the Pokemon card in January of 2021 after receiving a loan from the Small Business Administration for a non-existent business. He pleaded guilty to defrauding the loan program in 2021, leaving the government responsible for selling the card. Pandemic fraud became such an open secret that it ceased to be much of a secret at all. In September of 2020, California rapper named Frontrell Antonio Baines, who performed as Nuke Bizzle, posted a music video on YouTube bragging in detail about how he had gotten rich by submitting false unemployment claims. His song was called EDD after California's Employment Development Department, which paid the benefits. I just seen 30 cards land in one day, got straight on the phone and activate. Flashing cards and envelopes with preloaded debit cards from the state. Unemployment is so sweet. All those programs are now over. There's no official estimate for the amount of money that was stolen from them or the pandemic relief program in general. The Justice Department has charged people with about $1 billion in fraud so far, and it's investigating other cases involving $6 billion or more. I mean, like, what, 7? Okay, hold on. But other reports suggest the real number could be much higher. One official said the total of improper unemployment payments could be more than $163 billion. As first reported by the Washington Post, the Economic Injury Disaster Loan Program, a watchdog found in the Economic Injury Disaster Loan Program, a watchdog found that $58 billion had been paid to companies that shared the same address, phone numbers, and bank accounts or other data as other applicants, a sign of potential fraud. There's tens of billions in fraud. It's clear that there's tens of billions in fraud, said Michael Horowitz, the Chamber of Pandemic Response Accountability Committee, which includes 21 agency inspector generals working on fraud cases. Would it surprise me if it exceeded $100 billion? No. The effort to catch the fraudsters began as the money started flowing, and the first person was charged with benefit fraud in May of 2020. But investigators were quickly deluged with tips at a scale they've never dealt with before. At the end of the day, but let's take the biggest amount, right? Like $100 billion, right? How much was that in context of how much government how much the money that the government gave out? 1.9 trillion. And that's including 3.1 trillion. So essentially, almost, well, effectively 6 trillion. Many of allegations of frauds in grant programs date to the first week of the pandemic when the government gave out 5.8 million advanced grants worth $19.7 billion in over just 100 days. In that program, fraud was easy to pull off, according to a government watchdog, which cited numerous loans given to businesses that were ineligible for funding. Mr. Ware said that he recently limited his agents to working 10 cases at a time. He's like, you're killing yourself and I have to protect you from you. In some cases, lawyers for those charged with committing pandemic fraud have sought to argue that their clients should be judged less harshly for stealing because the government made it so easily. The government was handing out money with no checks, and a lot of people took advantage of that. It's a honey trap, he added. Richard Avazine fell into that trap. Avazian, I'm not even going to try to pronounce this, was sentenced to 17 years in prison for participating in a ring that saw $20 million in fraudulent loans. Like, I mean, but there is a difference between, like, man, you potentially engaging in some, like, fraudulent behavior to, like, pay your house or pay for food or something that you really need, and then there's creating, like, crime rings to defraud more people or to defraud more money from the government or something like that. Like, there's a difference between that. There's a difference between, like, desperate people who, like, maybe have used these funds to pay their house or something like that, than folks like this. In the case of Mr. Aldusmine, the Pokemon card purchaser, the lawyers argued that a judge should be lenient in deciding a sentence because the fraud had taken hardly any time at all. In an event without significant planning or limited duration, said this lawyer Brian Gerard, who is Mr. Aldusmine attorney at the time, that didn't work. The U.S. District Judge Dudley H. Brown Jr. sentenced Aldusmine to 3 years in prison, more than prosecutors had asked for, to demonstrate to the world that this is the consequence of fraud. Now, Mr. Aldusmine is appealing with a new lawyer and a new argument. Deterrence, the new lawyer argues, is moot here because the pandemic relief programs are over. There's no way to deter someone from doing it. There's no way they can do it any longer. Biden administration officials are trying to prepare for the next disaster, seeking to build a system that would quickly check applications for sign of identity theft. Yeah, that's kind of a big problem. That is massive. Last week, just more examples of this. I suspect that all these cases, like, how much money and how much effort is going into this, and how much is it going to cost at the end of the day? Decades, 10 years, 1 decade of investigations. I mean, that involves prosecutors, lawyers. I don't know. We'll see how much that ends up being worth. All right, we've got the climate recap, and I think we made it. Smooth sailing today, folks.
What is Vanuatu's new clean energy goal? And how much profit did Saudi Aramco make last quarter? Welcome to the Climate Recap from the Becky's Your Climate Corner, your go-to place for international and US-based climate news. I'm Becky Hogue, a science writer. Today is Tuesday, August 16th. Let's jump right into the news you need to start your day. Let's start with an extreme weather event. The wildfire in northeastern Zaragoza province of Spain began burning out of control on Sunday and has forced the evacuation of 1,500 people from 8 villages. Spain is in the worst drought it's seen in 1,200 years, making it particularly susceptible to wildfires. It has also been on and off heat waves. The wind on Sunday was blowing at 37 miles per hour or 60 kilometers, and it burned about 20,000.
Yeah, it seems like giving individual people money during the pandemic would have been better instead of making it easy for scammers to run wild. Yeah, like what I was saying was like maybe if there was like a better deployment of system, a better system deployed where you just give people what they need without, you know, means testing, none of this would happen. And now we've got to fork over like the resources to go after these people. I don't know. Not that it's okay. I'm just saying, like, not that it's okay to be a scammer, but I'm just saying, like, out of the 6 trillion, we took an L of 100, maybe 100 plus billion. I don't know. Maybe we could have done it a better way where we just gave money, you know, like you said, to the individual folks with little means testing, so we wouldn't have to go through all this.
1,000 acres or 8,000 hectares in less than a 24-hour period. Time for some climate studies. A study by the nonprofit First Street Foundation determined that an extreme heat belt is forming from eastern Texas up to southern Wisconsin, fully encompassing Louisiana, Arkansas, Missouri, Illinois, and Indiana. In this space, the heat index could reach at least 125 degrees Fahrenheit or 51.7 degrees Celsius, at least one day a year in 2053. Some counties are already there, like Des Moines County, Iowa, and Union County, Arkansas, but most aren't. Parts of Southern California, Arizona, and New Mexico, as well as parts of Georgia, Florida, North Carolina, South Carolina, and Virginia, are expected to see those high indexes by 2053 too. Overall, the number of people possibly exposed to at least 125 degree Fahrenheit days one day a year will increase by 13-fold over the next 30 years, from 8 million people to 107 million. First Tree has made similar risk analyses for flooding and wildfires, and if you live in the US, I recommend putting your zip code in to see how your home is or will be impacted by extreme weather events. Speaking of which, the U.S. set a new record in July for overnight warmth, according to the National Oceanic and Atmospheric Administration, or NOAA. The lower 48 states saw nighttime averages of 63.6 degrees Fahrenheit or 17.6 degrees Celsius, which is a few hundredths of a degree above the previous record made in 2011.
Right, I'm making the argument that you shouldn't means test. Wait, just to be clear, I'm making the argument that you shouldn't means test. Yeah, just to be clear, I'm making the arguments that you shouldn't.
The record for the month of July, but also for any month of the year. Texas saw an average nighttime temperature of over 10 degrees Fahrenheit more than that average. Warmer nights lead to worse and shorter sleep, leading to less productive days. Hot nights disproportionately impact older people and poor areas, which usually have less access to air conditioning. It also disproportionately impacts homeless people. A new study called ArcStorm 2.0, led by the U.S. Geological Survey, determined that climate change has already doubled California's risk of a catastrophic megaflood, and the likelihood of this event increases by 683% by 2060 in high emissions scenarios. This extreme weather event is known as the other big one, with the first big one referring to a major earthquake we've been expecting for decades. Climate change is making flooding more likely due to increased wildfires and drought, killing vegetation that would otherwise absorb water into the soil. Destabilizing the ground increases the likelihood of flash flooding and landslides, as we've already seen in 4 1-in-1,000-year flooding events in the U.S. this year. Meanwhile, climate change is increasing how extreme these rainfall events are too. Let's look at some climate victories. The small island nation Vanuatu launched an ambitious climate plan that commits the country's energy sector to reach 100% clean energy by 2030. To be clear, Vanuatu is already a carbon negative country, meaning it stores more carbon than it produces. It's also one of the most vulnerable countries to climate change in the world, mainly due to sea level rise. Despite this, Vanuatu has become one of only 12 countries to follow through with the UN's recommendation to update their nationally determined contributions, or NDCs, by the end of 2022. These are basically just formally made decarbonization commitments. Vanuatu also plans to continue pushing wealthy countries through public pressure and legal action to financially help emerging economies to pay for climate adaptation and mitigation efforts. This includes pushing the International Court of Justice to give an advisory opinion on climate harm other countries and groups could point to when they're suing corporations or countries. Vanuatu got other island nations to join it in its fight. Truly a kick-ass country. In Europe, Hayward Heath, England, became Europe's first town to sign.
Ha! I went to go vote today and I've never seen so many thirsty politicians for my vote. But when I want to contact them and collect the check, you know what I mean? You know, collect on the I vote for you. You represent me. Yeah, it seems to be the way of the norm, yeah?
sign on a plant-based treaty initiative aimed to pressure world leaders to move their populations away from an animal product-heavy diet. Industrial animal agricultural practices, especially relating to cattle and sheep, are huge sources of greenhouse gas emissions due to methane-laced burping and farting and associated deforestation. It also drives biodiversity loss and water pollution. So reducing your meat and dairy intake, even if it's not going full-blown veganism, can help reduce your impact. Haywards Heath might be the first European country to sign on, but it joins 17 other cities worldwide that have signed on too. Berkeley, California is a big location for this initiative. The three main parts of the plant-based treaty are stop the problem from increasing, eliminate the driving forces behind the problem, and actively heal the problem while building resilience and mitigating climate change. If you would like to learn more, there will be a link in the source list below. California Governor Newsom officially proposed extending the Diablo
Brandon's
Canyon
speech
nuclear
today on
plant's
signing his
life
bills
beyond
we're
the scheduled
screening.
2025 closing.
I don't know if I have time to do that.
Date by 5 to 10 years. The draft proposal includes a $1.4 billion forgivable loan to PG&E and directs state agencies to clear the way for the reactor to continue operating. This plant has been fought over for decades and was pretty close to being closed. Anti-nuclear environmentalists see it as unsafe in an earthquake state. Pro-nuclear environmentalists see it as a form of stable clean energy. We have some climate fails. The world's largest fossil fuel exporter, Saudi Aramco, reported record quarterly profits of $48.4 billion or 40 billion pounds. Its previous record was made in the first quarter of 2022. It's been a 90% year-on-year increase since the company went public 3 years ago. Saudi Aramco also announced it would keep its dividend unchanged at $18.4 billion for the third quarter because it's using its profits to expand to satisfy demand. This is just the latest in a long list of fossil fuel companies reporting record earnings during the Russian and Ukrainian war, some for multiple times in a row now. Meanwhile, a major U.S. liquefied natural gas exporter, Cheniere Energy, is allegedly greenwashing itself to justify expanding operations. It started reporting emissions using carbon emissions tags that it puts on its gas to ease buyer concerns about emissions. It supposedly includes emissions up and downstream, so what's the problem? Well, Oil Change International and Greenpeace accused the company of ignoring a lot of methane emissions and promoting a disingenuous clean image of its fossil gas. To be fair, this is partially due to the company using Environmental Protection Agency or EPA data, which has been exposed in recent years for undercounting methane emissions. The emissions data is also based on averages, even though the differences in emissions from one shipment to another can vary based on how and where it's made, processed, and shipped. If you want to learn more about Cheniere Energy's alleged deceptive emissions tracking practices, check out DeSmog's article in the source list below. For reference, DeSmog is a media organization that does a great job at chopping down greenwashing and climate disinformation. It has whole databases on the Koch brothers, climate disinformation, air pollution lobbying, and agribusiness. Great stuff.
Yeah, DeSmog is based.
I want to finish today's episode with a sign of a potential shift. Some members of the UK government are starting to question the sustainability of burning wood chips, particularly from the Drax power station. Drax gets its wood chips from North America. Business and Energy Secretary Kwong Tang said burning wood chips is not sustainable and doesn't make financial sense. This is big because the UK currently has a biomass-reliant plan, with biomass and waste currently representing 10% of the country's energy supplies. The industry has received £5.6 billion in subsidies from energy bills over the last decade. And it's true that burning wood chips isn't sustainable. Advocates for this form of biomass say it's regenerative because they can always plant more trees, but young trees take a while to take up as much carbon as old-growth trees. Also, we should have learned about how bad burning wood is for air pollution from history. So this is just an important opinion in the UK government, but I think it's a hopeful sign of change.
True.
And that was your climate recap for Tuesday, August 16th. If you like the work I do, please follow this podcast, give it a 5-star rating, leave a review, and consider checking out the Beckosphere Climate Corner YouTube channel. Remember to talk about the climate crisis every single day and to support your local news organizations. Bye for now.
Alright, go do the thing. Like, subscribe, comment for the almighty algorithm. 89 subs. Can we get a 90? Can we make it 90? Yeah, we'll watch it at 1.25, and I think that's fine. God, that's so cringy.
Thank you. Please be seated. I'm pleased to be here today on behalf of the United States House of Representatives, where on Friday we delivered a unanimous Democratic vote to pass this Inflation Reduction Act. It was one of the few truly historic days in the 30 years I've spent in the Congress. Mr. President, I want to thank you for your tireless work to add this remarkable legislation to your long and growing list of accomplishments. In just 18 months, often away from public view, your administration has created
I know, it's held to
a
the chief.
record
I think it's
number of
cringe.
jobs. Your American Rescue Plan helped our country
I think it was her
overcome a
other channel. Let's make it 90.
pandemic. Your Infrastructure and Jobs Act is making historic investments in broadband and to repair and bolster our infrastructure. Your CHIPS and Science Act will strengthen our critical supply chains and give real substance and new meaning to Make It in America. The Inflation Reduction Act you are about to sign will lead to transformative change in this great country. It checks inflation by reducing the deficit by $300 billion over the next decade.
It's a little too late, but whatever. Hooray, I
It
guess.
ensures
Yeah, it's
more
something.
tax fairness by requiring corporations to pay a minimum of 15% while protecting families making less than $400,000 per year from paying 1 penny more. We are called to be good stewards of this planet, and this legislation cuts climate pollution by 40% in just 8 years while building a new, clean energy economy that will make electricity accessible and affordable and create 9 million new jobs. Now, Mr. President, you know how much you meant to my late wife, Emily, who 3 years ago lost her 30-year battle.
That's
with
an indictment of the
diabetes.
30 years he spent
If she
there.
were here today, she would be beyond joy, celebrating the $35 per month cap on insulin and the $3,000 annual cap on out-of-pocket costs for Medicare patients.
Yeah, I was about to
She
say
would
this
also
is
rejoice in the 3-year extension.
this is specifically only for Medicare because I forget who torpedoed the idea. Was it Republicans? I forget. I don't know who torpedoed the idea of just making that like a thing. I don't know why this is such a hard concept to just make it cheap. I don't know.
For Affordable Care Act subsidies and the authorization of Medicare to negotiate some drug prices. Emily had adequate health insurance, but many of our neighbors and her friends did not. Mr. President, you took office at a time when we were in dire need of a statesman willing to put people over politics. Many seem surprised at your successes. I am not, because I know you, but more importantly, you know and respect the American people. Now,
Platitudes. Will it help get Medicare for all? No, not a chance. Not a chance. Not a chance. Like if they really wanted to be as aggressive as possible and try to push something for like Medicare for all, they would have. If they actually were interested in doing that, they would have done that like years ago. They would have done that during the Obama presidency if they were interested in doing that.
I am pleased to introduce Senate Majority Leader Chuck Schumer.
Well, thank you, Representative Clyburn, for that introduction. And I want to thank you, President Biden, for inviting us to the White House today. Thanks to my colleagues here today. This has been one of the most productive stretches in Senate history, from the first gun safety bill in decades, to strengthening NATO, to outcompeting the Chinese Communist Party, to taking care of our veterans. And to top it all off, we celebrate a groundbreaking achievement, the most important bill we have
Get the
passed
chuck
in a
out.
long time. President Biden will sign the Inflation Reduction Act into law today.
Okay, I'm cringing. Hold on. Okay.
I am confident this bill will endure as one of the greatest legislative feats in decades. It'll lower costs, create
To only the people who have Medicare for certain drugs.
millions of good-paying jobs, and is the boldest climate bill ever. Now, in normal times, getting these bills done would be a huge achievement. But to do it now, with only 50 Democratic votes in the Senate, over an intransigent Republican minority, is nothing short of amazing. It shows how dedicated and persistent our caucus is. I want to give all 50 of my colleagues, a wonderful, diverse, and dedicated group of 50, huge credit
With the exception of Joe Manchin and Kirsten Sinema.
for getting this bill.
Like, man, I would use this opportunity to call these fuckers out, right? Like, yeah, we almost didn't get to this. No thanks to you. Like, damn, such a missed opportunity.
Over the finish line. Huge credit. I also want to thank Speaker Pelosi, all the chairs of the committee, Joe Manchin for working so hard to get this bill done.
Yeah, he did after he got some coal goodies, coal subsidies or some shit.
And of course, the incredible, immensely dedicated staff who gave it their all to finishing this bill. Let's have a round of applause for the great staff, White House and Senate. For years, the naysayers said we could never take on the big drug companies and lower the cost of prescription drugs. But now we have. They said we could never take on entrenched big oil interests and get tough on climate change. But we have succeeded. They said we'd never close tax loopholes for the wealthy and make the ultra-rich.
All right, guys, pack it up. We solved climate change, folks. We did it. Okay? We did it. We can all go home now.
Pay their fair share, but we've gotten all these things done in one single bill.
Not let the perfect be the enemy of the good. No, I'm saying that, the presentation of this bill makes it seem out to be, way more than what it is, right? This bill gives money to fossil fuel companies, doesn't it? I think there's components of that in there. Yes, thanks to Manchin. Something to that effect. I want to say leases or some type of goodies to them. Yeah. This is what we would consider a lowercase w in some aspects of this bill.
For anyone who thought Washington was broken and couldn't do big things, Democrats have shown real change is possible. If the last 2 months could be summed up in a word, it would be persistence. My dad, who died in November and would have been 99 on Flag Day, taught me a lesson. If you try to do the right thing, and if you persist and never give up,
oh yeah, it's better than nothing.
Better place.
Yeah,
well, that's
it's better than nothing.
We persisted.
That's for sure.
Persisted and persisted and never gave up.
I just don't want people to think that we solved the thing, right? The way they're making it out, it's yeah, we solved climate change.
Thank you, President Biden, for your leadership.
Can we celebrate a little W? Yeah, this is a lowercase W.
We wouldn't be here without you. A year and a half ago, you laid out the groundwork for this bill. And like us, you
this was supposed to be the Build Back Better. The Build Back Better plan, and it's in its most watered down version.
Closely with my team and our caucus for more than a year to get this bill done. The president deserves tremendous credit for this moment. He knew precisely when to step in and when to let negotiations play out. He knew when to use the bully pulpit and when to bring people together, away from the spotlight. He made sure we never lost our focus on climate. The president's vision, his dedication to our country, and his experience who made this moment possible. Thank you, President Biden.
This is the crumbs at the bottom of the potato chip bag.
After 4 years of a president who relished creating chaos, Americans are seeing what it looks like to have a president and a Congress that's focused on delivering results that make their lives better. Mr. President, you've restored dignity, respect, and a sense of action back to the Oval Office. Thank you, thank you, thank you. It's my honor to turn it over now to you.
I was just eating the crumbs off my ruffle bag. Yeah, there you go. This is the
Thank you, Majority Leader Schumer.
that's the Inflation Reduction Act right there.
Chuck, you've been a good friend a long, long time. And Joe, I never had a doubt. Joe had an operation on his shoulder. I just want you to know it wasn't because of anything we did. He's in great shape. And our whip, Mr. Clyburn, you're amazing. And I am reminded often by my staff, were not for you, your wife telling you to endorse me, I wouldn't be standing there. So thank you very, very much.
Yeah. No kidding. Oh my God. This makes me want to scream.
And also Congressman Castor and my good friend Frank Pallone, Congressman Pallone. Thank you for your leadership. You know, while they couldn't be here, I especially want to thank Nancy Pelosi, who was instrumental in this law, and Vice President Harris for incredible work she did. And I'm about to sign the Inflation Reduction Act into law, one of the most significant laws in our history. Let me say from the start, with this law, the American people won and the special interests lost. The American people won and the special interests lost. We're in a session of...
This is like making it out to be like one of the most historic like actions. I don't know. I think it's a good step, and I think it shows, if anything, it shows that we can do things. It shows that the government can take action. It shows that the government, this administration can do things. No, he was definitely not the best NEM that they could put up at the time. Not by a mile. Not while like Bernie Sanders was having like a lot of steam behind him. And I can guarantee, like I would place money that a Bernie Sanders candidacy would have still beat Trump just the same.
For a while, people doubted whether any of that was going to happen. But we are in a season of substance. This administration began amid a dark time in America. As Jim said, a once-in-a-century pandemic, devastating joblessness, clear and present threats to democracy and the rule of law, doubts about America's future itself. And yet, we've not wavered, we've not flinched, and we've not given in. Instead, we're delivering results for the American people. We didn't tear down, we built up, we didn't look back, we looked forward. And today offers further proof that the soul of America is vibrant, the future of America is bright, and the promise of America is real and just beginning. Look, the bill I'm about to sign is not just about today, it's about tomorrow. It's about delivering progress.
I don't know. I think he would have won against Trump. Like, I think he would have won. 100%. Like, a rock could have ran against Trump and the rock would win. Like, a little inanimate object would have won against Trump. Right. Like, just to be clear, it was a rejection of Trump, not because people were so ecstatic about Biden, right? Like, if that makes sense, it was a verdict on Trump.
And prosperity to American families. It's about showing the American and the American people that democracy still works in America, notwithstanding all the talk of its demise. Not just for the privileged few, but for all of us. You know, I swore an oath of office to you and to God to faithfully execute the duties of this sacred office. To me, the critical duty of the president is to defend what is best about America. And that's not hyperbole. Defend what's best about America, to pursue justice, to ensure fairness, and deliver results that create possibilities that all of us can live a life of consequence and prosperity in a nation that's safe and secure. That's the job. Fulfilling that pledge to you guides me every single hour of every single day in this job. No, presidents should be judged not only by our words, but by our deeds. Not by our rhetoric, but by our actions. Not by our promise, but by reality. And today is part of an extraordinary story that's being written by this administration and our brave allies in the Congress. This law that I'm about to sign finally delivers on a promise that Washington has made for decades to the American people. I got here as a 29-year-old kid. We were promising to make sure that Medicare would have the power to negotiate lower drug prices back then. Prescription drug prices. But guess what? We're giving Medicare the power to negotiate those prices now on some drugs. This means seniors are going to pay less for the prescription drugs, while we're changing circumstances for people in Medicare by putting a cap of a maximum of $2,000 a year on the prescription drug cost, no matter what the reason for those prescriptions are. That means if you're on Medicare, you'll never have to pay more than $2,000 a year, no matter how many prescriptions you have, whether it's for cancer or any other disease. No more than $2,000 a year. And you all know it because a lot of it come from families that need this. This is a godsend. This is a godsend.
You're lucky
Many
you did not
families.
get Trump's second term.
So long
Yeah.
overdue. The Inflation Reduction Act locks in place lower health care premiums for millions of families who get their coverage under the Affordable Care Act. Last year, a family of 4 saved on average $2,400 through the American Rescue Plan that I signed into law that the Congress voted in place. In the years ahead, thanks to the Inflation Reduction Act, 13 million people are going to continue to save an average of $800 a year on health insurance. The Inflation Reduction Act invests $369 billion to take the most aggressive action ever in confronting the climate crisis and strengthening our energy security. It's going to offer working families thousands of dollars in savings by providing them rebates to buy new and efficient appliances, weatherize their homes, get tax credit for purchasing heat pumps and rooftop solar, electric stoves, ovens, dryers. It gives consumers a tax credit to buy electric vehicles or fuel cell vehicles, new or used. And it gives them a tax credit of up to $7,500 if those vehicles were made in America. American auto companies, along with American labor, are committing their treasure and their talent, billions of dollars in investment to make electric vehicles and battery and electric charging stations all across America. Made in America. All of it made in America. This new law also provides tax credits that's going to create tens of thousands of good-paying jobs, clean energy manufacturing jobs, solar factories.
Yes, that's great. And now we need to make sure that you plan our infrastructure, revamp our infrastructure, get ourselves off its fossil fuels as much as possible. Like, the possibility is there, right? Like, yeah, Lisa Dems used her majority to reestablish voting rights. Nope, they didn't even do that with Roe v. Wade or anything like that. I mean, the Biden administration currently has the opportunity to declare a crisis when it comes to climate change and put federal resources to use further on that. But it would have been nice if Biden had reversed anything Trump had done executively. Yeah, did he ever rescind executive orders by Trump? I don't think so, right? The U.S. dodged a big bullet, but are in danger of stepping in a line, in line for a cannon shell. It depends on what the Dems do, really, right? Like, it depends on what the Dems do, or don't do, I should say. It depends on what the Dems do or don't do.
In the Midwest and the South, wind farms across the plains and off our shores, clean hydrogen projects, and more all across America, every part of America. This bill is the biggest step forward on climate ever. And it's going to allow us to boldly take additional steps toward meeting all of my climate goals, the ones we set out when we ran. It includes ensuring that we create clean energy opportunities in frontline and fence-line communities that have been smothered by the legacy of pollution, and fight environmental injustice that's been going on for so long. And here's another win for the American people. In addition to cutting the deficit by $350 billion last year, in my first year in office, and cutting it $1.7 trillion this fiscal year, we're going to cut the deficit point out by another $300 billion with the Inflation Reduction Act over the next decade. We're cutting deficits to fight inflation by having the wealthy and big corporations finally begin to pay part of their fair share. Big corporations will now pay a minimum of 15% tax instead of us 55 of them got away with paying $0 in federal income tax on $40 billion in profit. And I'm keeping my campaign commitment. No one, let me emphasize, no one earning less than $400,000 a year will pay a penny more in federal taxes. Folks, the Inflation Reduction Act does so many things that for so many years, so many of us have fought to make happen. And let's be clear. In this historic moment, Democrats sided with the American people, and every single Republican in the Congress sided with the special interest in this vote. Every single one. In fact, the big drug companies spent nearly $100 million to defeat this bill. $100 million. And remember, every single Republican in Congress voted against this bill. Every single Republican in Congress voted against lowering prescription drug prices, against lowering health care costs, against the fair tax system. Every single Republican, every single one, voted against tackling the climate crisis, against lowering our energy costs, against creating good-paying jobs. My fellow Americans, that's the choice we face. We can protect the already powerful or show the courage to build a future where everybody has an even shot. That's the America I believe in. That's what I believe in. And today, we've come a step closer to making that America real. Today, too often, we confuse noise with substance. Too often, we confuse setbacks with defeat. Too often, we hand the biggest microphones to the critics and the cynics who delight in declaring failure, while those committed to making real progress do the hard work of governing. Making progress in this country as big and complicated as ours clearly is not easy. It's never been easy. But with unwavering conviction, commitment, and patience, progress does come. Your dad was right. And when it does, like today, people's lives are made better, and the future becomes brighter, and a nation can be transformed. That's what's happening now. From the American Rescue Plan that helped create nearly 10 million new jobs, to once-in-a-generation infrastructure law that will rebuild America's roads, bridges, ports, deliver clean water, high-speed internet to every American, to the first meaningful gun safety law in 30 years. And if I have anything to do with it, we're still going to have an assault weapons ban, but that's another story. And to get significant veterans health care law in decades for the first time. To a groundbreaking chips and science law that's going to ensure that technologies and jobs of the future are made here in America.
Yes, while giving a bunch of freebies to those companies. Yeah, the CHIPS Act is, I'm not sold on that. So the CHIPS Act that he's describing, like, basically it's rewarding the companies who outsource those jobs for outsourcing them to bring them back here, which they outsourced to begin with. 15% is very reasonable. Honestly, I don't think it's a bad idea to just have like increase in corporate taxes. I'm not opposed to that.
In America. And all this progress is part of our vision and plan and determined effort to get the job done for the American people so they can look their child in the eye and say, honey, it's going to be okay. Everything's going to be okay. Everything's going to make it sure that the democracy delivers for your generation, because I think that's at stake. And now, I know there are those here today who hold a dark and despairing view of this country. I'm not one of them. I believe in the promise of America. I believe in the future of this country. I believe in the very soul of this nation. And most of all, I believe in you, the American people. I believe to my core. There isn't a single thing this country cannot do when we put our mind to it. We just have to remember who we are. We are the United States of America. There's nothing beyond our capacity. That's why so many foreign companies decide to invest or make chips in America. Billions of dollars. We're the best. We have to believe in ourselves again. And now, I'm going to take action that I've been looking forward to doing for 18 months. And it's time to Inflation Reduction Act. Just make sure you get the right one. All right. Okay. Here you go. It's now law.
All right, that's good enough. These like ceremonies are so weird. Reminding everyone that they haven't done shit in 18 months probably wasn't the best. You're also lucky that Trump isn't standing there today. Yeah, like I said, I strategically speaking, this was a better outcome. Trump was worse. There's nothing we can do about that. You know what I'm saying? The way that Chuck Schumer was standing there is kind of creepy. Like, the whole ceremonies, like, are just weird. For, like, bill signings like this. I don't know. It all just seems so weird. But so it is. And so it was signed. Aren't the bar so low I've lost sight of it? Oh shoot. Nope. Stop it. Alright, so clicking the raid channel, I accidentally hit the add button. Yay. Alright, so I'm gonna wait until it's done. Yeah, just to be clear, like, I'm not stuck to a particular party. Like, just to be very clear, I will take the lowercase w, and I hope, I will take the lowercase w, and I hope that it means, that things will turn out better. But yeah. Yeah, don't mistake my, don't mistake my, scorn for conservatism, and don't mistake my scorn for Republicans and authoritarianism, to just mean that I have a D next to my name. That's not how that works. My prerogative has always been, to do the most amount of good for the most amount of people. You have choices to make. You have choices to make. As life is, you have choices to make, and when presented with choices that involve crappy or less crappy, you choose less crappy. Especially if less crappy means less crappy for millions and millions and millions of people, right? Like, I don't know. You just choose and work with what you got, and you play the hand that you're given. You won't find a Republican kicking back against their W's? It depends. It depends, but that's what I'm saying. I'm not tied to a party. That's what I'm trying to say. I'm not tied to a party. The Democrats are only useful to me insofar as they do more good. The Democrats are useful as insofar as they do more good or they do less harm. At the end of the day, that's your choices, right? You play with the hand you're given. And it is, in my opinion, I think imperative to recognize that. The Democratic Party isn't here to save you. Joe Biden isn't the savior. The savior. Neither is a single party. Right? Neither is a single party. I go incredibly hard on the Republicans, and I go incredibly hard on conservatism because I think they're a genuine threat. I think that they're a genuine threat. And I think they need to be stopped. I think they need to be stopped. By whatever means necessary. In terms of electoralism. Thank you. Good night from London. Good night! On that note, you're correct. I gotta get rolling. You remember, folks, you play with the hand you're given, and you do the most amount of good for the most amount of people. Okay? Folks, if you enjoy the content, don't forget to hit the follow button. It does help us out, and you get 5 free emotes. Head on over to our YouTube channel, click the subscribe button, join the Discord to keep up with the channel, spread the word far and wide that this is the chillest place to be for news and politics Monday through Thursday, 5 p.m. Eastern Time, and join us on Sundays around noon Eastern Time. That being said, folks, thank you so much for joining. I appreciate that. Thank you, Maple Leaf Dragon. Thank you, Alio, for the biddies. I appreciate all the support. Yeah, that's what I'm trying to convey, Alio. Like, I'm not here to adulate the Democratic Party for doing, like, something that they're supposed to be doing, right? It's a small W, and I hope that this proves that they can do something, and more action is necessary. That's it. Until the Democrats reinstate the Voting Rights Act, I don't believe that they're any way serious about stopping a Republican. Well, they like power, so that's one reason. And I think that I don't think it's just solely on that, right? I mean, I could sit here all day, but that's besides the point. But yeah, that's besides the point. All right, folks. Unfortunately, I have to get going. I appreciate you guys hanging out. As always, please stay safe. Please take care of each other. I love you all, and I hope to see you guys in the next one tomorrow, 5 p.m. Eastern Time. See ya! Alright, folks, we're heading out in 5, 4, 3, 2, 1. See ya.